Number 11. Sea pig. Crowned as perhaps the ugliest creature of the deep sea, sea pigs are one of the most common and abundant animals caught off the coast of Antarctica. I don't know, don't you think it's the ugliest? Let me know in the comments below. They also go by the names of sea cucumber and holothuroid. Just like earthworms on land, sea pigs are important in processing the sediment, but fisheries continue to threaten their existence. They're good indicators of environmental change in shallow as well as deep water. You can find them in groups of 300 and even up to 600 all over the ocean floor. They're 4 to 6 inches long and can easily fit in the palm of your hand, although we're not sure why you would want them in there in the first place. They can be found in the deepest parts of the ocean and sometimes live up to 4 miles under the surface. Their weird looking legs are used to push food in their mouths, and they feed off the organic particles which they extract from deep sea mud. Sea pigs grow in many weird ways, and they live alongside starfish, coral, clams, sponges, and sea urchins. They also host several parasites that are even weirder than they are, including small snails and crustaceans that bore holes in their host bodies, continuing to feed on them internally. Here's the good news, they're completely harmless to humans, although having them as a pet would mean investing in a very deep fish tank. Number 10. Feather star. These creepy looking creatures also live in the deep Antarctic Sea. They're a part of a much bigger family with species all around the world, but this member of the Promotrichrinus family is particularly fond of the coldness of the Antarctic Sea. It's the only feather star with 10 rays at the base of the arms, and it makes it look way denser and feathery than other family members. They're very mobile creatures that primarily eat phytoplankton. They're also susceptible to the impacts of climate change as they're sensitive to temperature changes. Number 9. Swimming snail. A bean-sized swimming snail, Lemurcina helicina, has crossed the tropics to live in both Arctic and Antarctic seas. The creature spins a mucus net off its paddle-like foot wings to trap algae and other small particles on which it feeds. Their shell is very thin and allows for easy movements. This small and certainly odd-looking creature is considered an indicator species of the health of the entire ecosystem. Many fish, including whales, heavily depend on this swimming snail as their primary source of food. The creatures also affect the carbon cycle and may have an impact on the Earth's climate. Many are wondering how these creatures manage to get to both ends of the Earth without any stops in between, the distance almost 7,000 miles. A decade-long international project to map the world's oceans called the Census of Marine Life was determined to discover more about these creatures and how they ended up living on both ends of the world. Other types of snails about the size of a pea, known as petropods, are also found in the Southern Ocean near Antarctica. They are actually venomous, which helps them to protect themselves from predators. But another organism called an amphipod, which looks like a tiny shrimp, is taking advantage of them and actually kidnapping the snails and wearing them like backpacks, holding them in place with 2 legs so the snails can't escape. Live Science reported that researchers had described backpacking amphipods in coastal waters near Antarctica, but now we have proof. Number 8. The Hoff crab. If the name of this crab sounds familiar, we can confirm it. Although its official name is Kiwa tyleri, the Hoff crab has been nicknamed by the bare-chested actor David Hasselhoff, known for his role in Baywatch. Before it had an official scientific name, people online called it the Hoff, and he himself tweeted his support. Its official name honours the renowned British polar and deep ocean biologist Paul Tyler from Southampton University. The Hoff crab is actually a species of deep-sea squat lobster and a member of the yeti crab family. It farms bacteria on its furry chest as its main source of food. Only first discovered in 2005, the creature is known to live in the hottest part of the cold environment, and it swarms around steamy vents 1.5 miles deep. Images from the National Environment Research Council demonstrate hundreds, if not thousands, of these crabs all over the hot vents in very close communities. These are volcanic rock systems that draw water through cracks in the sea floor, superheat it, load it with dissolved metals and other chemicals, and then inject it back into the ocean, creating entire ecosystems. To allow it to crawl through these hot vents, the crab has spines on its legs. The Hoff crabs are very fascinating for deep ocean biologists. Very rarely do they find creatures like crabs and lobsters in frigid environments. And now for number 7. But first, be sure to subscribe to Epic Wildlife and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos like these. Number 7. The Antarctic springtail. Sure, you can find springtails all over the planet, but the Antarctic springtails have functions which can survive the brutally cold conditions of the Antarctic Sea. To save energy, the springtails slow down their metabolism, and during winter they produce glycerol, which lowers their freezing point, and although it's only 0.04 inches long and weighs only a few micrograms, the springtails are actually visible to the naked eye. That is, if you do ever end up at the bottom of the Antarctic Sea. An Antarctic springtail looks like an insect and reminds me of an earwig. They have 6 legs but more primitive and resemble the ancient ancestors of modern day insects. Their diet mainly comprises of fungus and bacteria, but it's said that not even springtails can survive the cold if they don't happen to produce enough glycerol to lower their freezing point. They will freeze. But here's the trick. According to a deep sea biologist, these animals can defrost and live without any problems. Number 6. Sea spiders. Sea spiders can also be found in waters all across the globe. But it's the Antarctic sea spiders that are truly special. And weird. They have no lungs, no gills, no organs for breathing at all. Most of the time, a sea spider is the size of your fingernail. In Antarctica, they can be the size of a dinner plate or more. Some have been found with leg spans of over 2 feet. They are far more common in Antarctica than anywhere else in the world. How did they get so big? New York Times reports that Antarctic sea spiders got so big because some 30 million years ago, the Southern Ocean got cooler. This trait, known as polar gigantism, is thought to be essential to why they and many other cold-dwelling invertebrates of unusual size managed to survive. Many creatures that manage to survive these icy waters get really big. Number 5. The Antarctic icefish. The Antarctic icefish have one of the most fascinating and unique characteristics. Due to their lack of hemoglobin, their blood is nearly translucent. And despite the lack of red blood cells, these fish can still survive and reproduce. There are 16 icefish species living in the Antarctic Sea, and it's the cold, oxygen-rich environment that helps them survive and maintain the expression of oxygen-binding proteins. These fish are a natural model for studying anemia, as their BTW gene relates to the human TRIM gene family. Icefish were also used as a model for investigating the reduction in bone mineral density that affects 46 million Americans. It's precisely these studies that have shown the expressions of key genes involved in the delay of bone development, which results in a cartilage-rich skeleton. Number 4. Glass sponges. A delicate name for a delicate organism. Creatures called glass sponges live on the seafloor of Antarctica. Recently, marine biologists discovered new facts about these creatures. While it was previously thought that they could go a decade without any measurable growth, they changed their minds when they discovered a boomtown of sponges that doubled in biomass and tripled in number over the course of 2 growing seasons. The sponges are organisms with skeletons made of silica, which is a mineral component of glass, hence their name. It was extremely surprising when the biologists discovered the sponges can, in fact, grow in such a cold environment. They were known to be the slowest of their already slow-growing family, and scientists are very eager to solve this mystery. It's also believed that these seafloor animals have the potential to store carbon, which could be another excellent tool to address climate change. When plant plankton, known as phytoplankton, produce food, they take carbon out of the seawater, and when glass sponges feed on that plankton, the carbon contained in their prey becomes locked away on the seafloor. And when the sponges die, they're buried in the sediment, sequestering their carbon. Number 3. Amphipoda. These bizarre little shrimp-looking creatures have no carapace and have literally compressed bodies. They can be found all over, but the largest living amphipods live deep down in the sea. Some were photographed at a depth of 5,300 meters, measuring about 28 centimeters long. Amphipods are a family with over 7,000 species, and Antarctica is full of species known as sand fleas, also known as sandhoppers. Like I mentioned before, these are the same kidnappers that will grab the toxic snails and wear them like a backpack. Number 2. Now this is one bizarre creature with a bizarre name and even weirder look. They have a yellow stomach that can reach out to feed all parts of their broad and oval body. They have a pointed tail with no obvious caudal fin and can measure up to 1.7 inches in length. This transparent creature feeds on zooplankton and can swim in depths of almost 5,000 feet, and a pretty widespread species. Apart from Antarctica, you can also find them in the Atlantic, Pacific and Indian Oceans, and in waters south of Australia. Number 1. Comb jelly. The comb jelly is known to float around areas which have high levels of carbon dioxide. They have no intestines, no lungs, and no stomach. Their bodies are designed to pass oxygen and nutrients directly through the gastrodermis. What makes them truly unique is their rainbow effect when the light emanates from their rows of cilia that run up and down their bodies. They don't seem to have a well-defined brain nerve. Instead, it's their nerve net that helps them adjust to the water change around them. It's almost hard to believe that such a fragile-looking creature can actually survive the cold temperatures of the Antarctic Ocean. But these 500 million years old creatures are actually accustomed to almost all types of environment. Smart things. The Antarctic Sea is full of surprises, and there are hundreds more species surviving in the cold climate, and there are likely many more that will be discovered. Could these creatures help us learn more about climate change? Will we find even weirder animal species living at the bottom of the ocean? We will just have to wait and see. Number 10. A mummified head. For a number of years now, archaeologists have been uncovering mummy after mummy from the frozen remnants of a necropolis located at Zeleny Yar site, Selekhard in Russia. For a while, they thought that the graveyard may only have been intended for men and children. However, in 2017, they uncovered the frozen mummified remains of a woman. This woman was buried while covered in fur and copper. She comes from a mysterious civilization from the 12th century that dominated certain parts of northern Siberia near the Arctic Circle, from which the rest of the mummified remains also belonged as well. Archaeologists claim that the woman was likely mummified by accident, and she is thus a natural mummification. However, given that it was an accident, it is only more incredible that she is so well preserved. Her teeth and facial features are intact, as well as her entire head of hair. The head is far more well preserved than the body. Her remains, as well as many of the other bodies found at Zeleny Yar, were turned towards the nearby Gorny Puli River. Researchers think that this must have been done for certain religious reasons. However, not much is known about this strange civilization, so stay alert for more from this necropolis. Number 9. Mummies of the Franklin Expedition. If you've watched The Terror, then you'll be familiar with this next one. In the 1840s, 2 ships sailed to the Arctic to find the Northwest Passage. However, after the ships ended up frozen in ice, the expedition took a sharp and sour turn. After enough time, as food became scarce and the crew became increasingly impacted with lead poisoning, members of the expedition had to search long and hard for food, and some turned to eating each other. In 1984, archaeologists uncovered the frozen mummies of 3 of the crew members from the Franklin expedition on Beechey Island. The faces of these mummies have become the poster of the horrors that those crew members must have faced in the months they spent marooned away from civilization. Their eyes are frozen wide open, their mouths curled in a frightening grimace. Analysis of the frozen, well-preserved mummies revealed those facts that we now know made the expedition such a terrifying affair, such as lead poisoning and starvation. It makes sense why these mummies would have such shocked looks on their faces. At any rate, we won't be able to forget it. Number 8. Lost Inca children. In 1999, archaeologists came across a spooky discovery in the ice. Found in Lulaico, an Argentinian volcano, they uncovered the remains of 3 Inca children who appeared to be part of a sacrificial ritual, and then nature took its course, freezing them solid at the summit of the volcano. The children were found mummified and frozen inside of a shrine, making it clear that they were an integral part of some kind of religious ritual. All 3 showed traces of having ingested some coca leaves and some sort of alcohol. Researchers think this is because it would make the children more receptive to the overall ritual. Commonly in these types of rituals, there is a use of mixed beverages. Those are made with leaves, roots, and some nuts. The shaman creates some smoke by burning leaves, and all the participants have a cup of this special brew. It causes visions and new sensations. This is what the native people call the yage, which means ceremony of spiritual connection. In the case of these children, they apparently were part of one of these rituals. However, one of the children, now referred to as the maiden, had clearly ingested far more alcohol and coca leaves than the other 2. She was likely selected for the sacrificial purpose and became an important societal figure thereafter. The other 2 merely serving as a derivative purpose. The fact that the ice preserved them so well only adds to the intrigue and sadness that these mummies carry. Number 7. Viruses. Deep inside the Tibetan Plateau, there are some exceedingly strange inhabitants. Researchers determined as much when they recently excavated 2 samples of ice from a glacier and found 33 strands of viruses, 28 ancient ones of which science has never seen. This means that there are probably many viruses frozen inside these glaciers that we know nothing about. What the scientists do to analyze these viruses is take some blocks of ice and then melt them in ethanol in sterile water, which makes the microorganisms wake up and start moving. Then they see what happens on their microscopes, and with all the information collected, they can start learning not only about the past, but the future of potential cures to all those unknown viruses. These discoveries are both helpful and harmful for the human race. On one hand, uncovering ancient viruses will make it easier for us to understand how these viruses stayed alive long ago, and how we might prevent them from arising once more. On the other hand, we know that if the glaciers were to melt, we'd have a lot more than sea level to worry about. If the glaciers melt, that would mean that these previously locked-in viruses would escape and wreak a kind of havoc upon humans that we don't yet understand very clearly. It's pretty spooky to think about what could happen if viruses that have been stagnant for years somehow found a way out. These days, many people are saying that the coronavirus is one of these viruses that escaped from the ice. It's just a theory though, right? Kidding. Number 6. Military transport aircraft. If something gets frozen in ice and we find it years later, you would expect it to have been something that passed us right by. Something small, something that we could forget about. But this isn't the case with respect to the C-124 Globemaster, a military transport plane that plummeted into Mount Gannett, a glacier about 50 miles away from Anchorage, Alaska, in 1952, taking the 52 crew members aboard down with it. They wanted to extract the plane's remains, but given the harsh Alaskan winter conditions, they couldn't visit the site of the crash. This airplane was transporting some equipment for the Alaskan base, with medicines, guns, and some other stuff for the army, which made this aircraft important for soldiers. For 50 years, the wreckage site sat unvisited and undisturbed until 2012, when passing aircraft saw the remains of a plane on Mount Gannett. Now that the glacier is melting, the frozen plane is unveiling itself for the world to see. Researchers determined that these spotted remains came from the crash, and some bones have been found on site. However, they cannot identify any of the original passengers who perished in the crash itself, and a great deal of the remaining debris is still trapped in the glacier. But it goes to show that the ice can also trap even the very large. Number 5. Mummified woolly mammoth. In August 2010, archaeologists uncovered the well-preserved remains of a 39,000-year-old woolly mammoth from the permafrost of Yuka, Russia. They now lovingly refer to the mammoth as Yuka. Astoundingly, the remains of this creature also include a completely mummified brain. This is the only nearly whole brain from a woolly mammoth discovered to date, and scientists have gone to town with this new discovery, conducting CT and MRI scans to find out more about how the woolly mammoths might have behaved. It seems that this little mammoth didn't have an aggressive meeting with a human. In fact, she fell into a lake, or maybe a swamp, and she couldn't free herself, and the cold became stronger, and that's why little Yuka was frozen. Actually, this mammoth was so well conserved that her brain was the best conserved organ in the whole body. There were many kinds of tissue still intact in Yuka's brain, and the team was even able to extract flowing blood from Yuka. Wow, Siberia is cold, enabling them to further understand the species past. They found that there were a lot of behavioural similarities between woolly mammoths and elephants, and while Yuka isn't the first woolly mammoth to escape from the permafrost, it is the first who left its brain to science for investigation. The last news published about this was that some scientists are interested in starting a project to clone this little baby. Who knows, maybe we can see mammoths walking around our planet again. Would you like to see that? Let me know in the comments below. Number 4. Frozen pike eating bass fish. It was a cold, sunny morning in Indiana when two brothers went out fishing on Wawasee Lake. They saw something strange in the ice. A fish eating another fish. They posted a picture of the strange sight on social media, and naturally people thought it was photoshopped. They got what appeared to be a pike eating a bass whole. Somehow these two fish had been frozen solid in the middle of the act. In response, they uploaded a video of themselves prying the fish from the frozen water. Probably the pike went in for a meal and began to choke, having taken too big of a bite. After dying, the two were frozen together for posterity. So, while you can't believe everything you see, sometimes the world can indeed be a crazy place. Number 3. Anthrax reindeer. Ice is good at preserving things, like mammoths and viruses, and some are scarier than others. In 2016, Russia was forced to cope with an outbreak of anthrax that came from somewhere deep in Siberia. Many were infected and others had died. But where could such a severe outbreak have originated? Well, it came from a frozen reindeer corpse that had anthrax locked in its body. Whoa, that sounds pretty weird, but as it turns out, it's actually the best explanation that scientists had. Siberia is very cold, and it has a thick layer of permafrost, ground soil that is frozen completely solid, that can go over 1,000 feet in some places. Because of this, bacteria can make it through the harsh Russian winters with no issues whatsoever. So when the heat wave struck and the area thawed some of the frozen reindeer, it thawed the anthrax along with it, and then other reindeer started spreading it as well. That's pretty freaky, and who knows what else might be frozen in the deep Siberian permafrost. Only time will tell. Number 2. An entire mountain range. That might sound unbelievable, but the towering Gamburtsev mountain range is about as big as the European Alps, all while being hidden under nearly 2 miles of ice. Because of erosion, they should look more like the rolling mountains of Appalachia right now. But for some reason, they're still youthful. Glaciologists think that their aging process slowed down once the Antarctic ice sheet got large enough. That means that a great deal of erosive force never reached the falls and valleys of the Gamburtsev mountains. If Antarctica were to melt, they would rival some of the highest ranges in the continent at around 8,800 feet above sea level. So how then did we spot this mountain range? This required a team of scientists and sophisticated type of radar that can see through ice. Pretty cool to think that there is an entire range of mountains hidden from our eyes. Number 1. Otzi the Iceman. In 1991, two mountaineers were hiking the Otzi Alps on the Austrian-Italian border when they came upon what they thought to be the body of a recent dead hiker, entirely frozen in ice. However, when researchers recovered the body, they discovered that this was not a recent death. Rather, he had been dead for around 5,000 years, which means he lived before the Egyptian pyramids were built. Now referred to as Otzi the Iceman, the body was remarkably well preserved into the modern era. It is thought, however, that Otzi had a savage ending. He had an arrowhead deep in his shoulder, and various cuts and signifiers of battle on his body. He was also carrying a number of mosses on his person, which might indicate that he intended to use them as medicine, and he likely put up a fight before dying. He boasted an impressive copper axe to boot. This man lived in the Neolithic period, a time of changes for the human race. The studies show that he was hunting because he was going to get food for his family, but it seems a snowstorm surprised him and he got trapped in the mountains. The most likely reason Otzi passed away was because of hypothermia. Otzi's body is now in the Italian South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology. His preservation is a remarkable feat, given his age. Number 10. Battle at Kruger. This epic scene is between some buffalo and some lions. Known as the Battle at Kruger, this occurred in 2004 at the Transport Dam watering hole in South Africa's Kruger National Park. While on safari in the park, a man named David Baczynski captured an 8-minute clip of the incident, which went viral on YouTube several years later. The amateur footage begins with a herd of buffalo approaching the watering hole for a drink, completely unaware that there's a pride of lions lying in wait. The lead buffalo catches on and gets visibly spooked, freezing in place, and the lions jump into action. They make the chase in the form of a 3-pronged attack, with one lioness managing to capture a calf, sending them both plunging into the water. From there, the lions try to snatch their calf from the water, but now a crocodile appears. It grabs it and tries to take it from them. Eventually, the lions win the battle, but just as they're about to indulge in their spoils, they are surrounded by a herd of buffalo who charge forth and throw one of the lions into the air. The other lions flee, and in the end, the small calf is able to rejoin their herd, amazingly. Hopefully it wasn't traumatized. Number 9. Rat vs snake. How much of a risk would you take to save someone you love, especially your own child? Would you put your life on the line? One rat put herself in potentially fatal danger to protect her baby in 2016 in Naples, Italy. Footage of the incident begins in the middle of the action, after a snake captured a baby rat. The rat's mum fearlessly chased after the snake, attacking its tail and grasping on. Unable to release itself from the mother rat in any other way, the snake releases the rat pup, and then slithered away into a nearby undergrowth. This wasn't the end of the ordeal for the snake, because the mother rat continued to chase the reptile until it fled far enough away for her to feel confident about her pup's safety. After patrolling the area to ensure the snake was not up for a second round, the concerned mama returned to pick up her child and take them back to the family's nest. This situation reminds us that although we may think of rodents as typical prey for snakes, catching dinner is not always easy. When a snake tries to fetch a meal, a large rat or protective parent can certainly sometimes hold their own in a face-off. Any animal can turn vicious if they're pushed far enough, and this racist snake will probably think twice the next time it thinks about stealing someone's baby. And now for number 8, but first be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know your favourite animal story in the comments below. Number 8. Dog rescues cupped cat. Plastic pollution's negative effects on wildlife and the environment are glaringly evident. One of the most common examples is with plastic beverage rings, those found around cans and plastic bottles. They will get around animals' necks, trapping birds, turtles, fish, and other creatures. But this story is quite unusual. In late 2017, a dog in Renfrew, Canada, found a cat wandering around with their head stuck inside a plastic cup. While it might seem funny at first, the feline is clearly in distress and doing everything in their power to free themselves. The last thing anyone probably expected though was for a dog to come to the cat's rescue. Rather than a helpful owner, camera person, or other nearby human, assistance came in the form of the cat's stereotypical mortal enemy. The dog who found him in need of a paw. In a wonderful example of animals helping each other out, the dog calmly approached, grabbing the cup in his mouth and pulled it off the cat's head. It's hard to know what was more surprising for the cat, their sudden freedom or the large dog looking down at them. But as soon as the feline was free, he or she walked on as if nothing had happened and didn't even thank their rescuer. Number 7. Dogs save elephants. Dogs may be man's best friend, but they're also known to bond with and even look out for other species. 3 dogs from Norfolk, Bo, Rogue and Polaris, were trained to assist with saving endangered animals from poachers in Africa. The pups wear body armour to help ensure their own safety while working in numerous national parks alongside their handlers, tracking scents that don't belong on a wildlife refuge and which indicate a recent human presence. These dogs' noses often lead park authorities to people trying to illegally hunt protected and endangered wildlife. The human dog team flies to remote places via helicopter, where the canines run through the bush, carefully avoiding lions and elephants while doing their work. Once a target is detected, the human authorities take over, going in themselves to disable and capture the poachers, hopefully before the illegal hunters cause any serious or fatal harm to the species living in the area. The dog's trainer, Daryl Pleasance, is proud of how successful his dogs are, as he should be, and says, "It's animals saving animals in an environment where humans have failed." Number 6. Cat saves clownfish. Life can be tough for fish in outdoor ponds, especially ones with complex filtration systems. But in 2016, in yet another example of a species showing mercy and compassion to an animal traditionally considered its enemy or food, a clownfish became stuck on a ledge in his outdoor pond, and he probably would have remained there indefinitely if not for a helpful ragdoll cat who came to the rescue. The cat dipped their paw into the water and gently brushed the fish back into the main part of the tank, potentially saving the creature's life and, at the very least, enabling them to get back to life as usual. Of course, all is not as it seems here. Upon closer examination of a video of the incident, you'll notice that the fish is rather still before it's rescued. And when it swims off, there's only movement in its tail. It also looks quite plastic, a telltale sign that it's a robotic fish rather than a real one. Nevertheless, it's possible that the cat didn't know that the fish was fake. And the clip is adorable. After all, who knows? Maybe this has actually happened for real. Number 5. Buffalo save an elephant. We've returned to South Africa's Kruger National Park for the next amazing rescue, and this time it involves a baby elephant who is abandoned by its mother. As the young pachyderm laid helplessly on its back, a pride of lionesses approached, fully planning to take advantage of the situation. As they started attacking, they drew the attention of a nearby herd of 4 buffalo who charged toward the lion, presumably in an attempt to protect their own offspring. Shortly after 4 buffalo initially ran in, the rest of the herd joined them, leaving the outnumbered and outpowered lions with no choice but to flee. Once it was safe, the baby elephant got back to its feet and went to the nearby watering hole to rejoin its family. Life in Africa's wildlands often seems like a case of every animal for themselves, and it often is survival of the fittest. But on some occasions like this one, animals who are being preyed upon manage to turn the tables on their predators with a little help from others who, with large enough numbers and an instinctive need to protect their own, repel the attack and live on to see another day. Number 4. Lizards save friend from a snake. At first glance, one video filmed in Bangkok, Thailand appears to depict 2 brave geckos taking on a green tree snake, but there's more going on here than meets the eye. The snake was wrapped around the tree, seemingly minding its own business as the 2 lizards snuck up on it. One gecko began cautiously attacking the snake, but as the snake unfurled, it became clear that its neck was swollen. As the other gecko approached, the snake almost fell from the branch, but managed to readjust itself and held on, causing the lizards to retreat to plan their next move. At that point, an onlooker grabbed a stick and prodded the snake with it, causing the situation to become clear. After being hit once more by one of the lizards, the snake regurgitated the item, causing its neck to swell. A 3rd lizard! The snake then fell to the ground, presumably to avoid another attack, and the previously ingested lizard remained on the branch, having turned a gruesome red colour and covered in snake slime after being swallowed and suffocated. On the bright side, the creature showed some slight signs of life, and soon enough it regained its strength and was reunited with its life-saving buddies. Number 3. Dog saving kangaroo. It's not uncommon for animals to get injured on roads, and in some cases, this tragically breaks up families. That's exactly what happened in 2008 in Victoria, Australia, when a car wreck claimed the life of a baby kangaroo's mother, leaving the little one to fend for itself. But luckily, a woman named Leonie Allen and her dog, Rex, walked past the destruction in time to get the joey to safety and spare its life. Rex, a then 10-year-old pointer, found the deceased kangaroo mother in the gutter and noticed that her joey was still alive in her pouch. He retrieved the young kangaroo and brought him back to Allen. The dog had been so careful with the joey that there was no sign of injury to him at all, and he soon recovered from the near-death experience. The 4-month-old joey, named Rex Jr. after his rescuer, quickly befriended Rex, snuggling up to and playfully jumping at the senior dog. Allen took Rex Jr. to a local rescue centre, Juralinga Wildlife Sanctuary, where he would be looked after until he was 18 months old. and then released back into the wild. Staff at the sanctuary were stunned at the close interspecies bond between the two animals, particularly because of how gently Rex had treated the baby kangaroo. Apparently, lots of humans bring joeys to the rescue with injuries resulting from being unintentionally handled too roughly. So for a dog to be more conscious of how delicately they need to be treated is astonishing and impressive. Number 2. Lion saves wildebeest calf. It's one thing for an animal to save another from a dangerous predicament, but it's very rare for one to rescue another creature from a member of its own species. Back in 2016, a wildebeest calf was walking across the African savanna in search of its mum, but was instead spotted by a young male lion who quickly gave chase to the defenceless baby. The two went around in circles, barely paying any attention to the tourists who were driving past. Eventually, the lion caught the calf, ending the chase, and nearly ending the little one's life. Amazingly though, when it seemed as if the lion was about to sink its teeth into the calf, the predator experienced a change of heart and began nurturing the young animal. The calf nestled up to the lion, but after a few moments of gently interacting with each other, a rival lioness entered the picture and tried taking the calf for herself. The first lion, whose parental instincts had seemingly kicked in, blocked the lioness's attempt. Unfortunately, video footage of the incident, which went viral, cuts off before the tense standoff is over, leaving the world to wonder about the little one's ultimate fate. Is the protective male lion simply toying with his food before eating it? Or have these two animals formed an extremely unlikely bond? We'll never know the answer, but it seems at least that this is a rare example of one of nature's most fearsome predators demonstrating compassion towards someone younger, smaller, and weaker than them. Number 1. Dog rescues one of their own. Human activity can lead to terrible consequences for domestic and wild animals alike. An unfortunate fact that became glaringly obvious in Santa Rosa del Cumuco, Chile in 2012, when a car bomb exploded in the street, setting fire to nearby houses. The flames quickly engulfed the homes, and inside one house were a litter of 5 puppies whose mother had given birth just 10 days earlier. Rather than panicking, the quick-thinking mother dog sprang into action and carried her pups one by one to safety. Images of her heroic deed showed how she picked each little one up by the scruff of their neck and carefully placed them on the step of the attending fire truck, before returning to the inferno to rescue another puppy. Once she retrieved all 5 puppies, she sat down next to them and tended to their injuries. Sadly, one of the pups died later on after being taken to a local vet for treatment, but the mother and 4 of her children survived and are living examples of her instinctive bravery. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.